Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I wanna thank you for making it on here today. I really appreciate that. I was on the call on Friday. I forget, it was almost 6 months ago, I believe,
Mm,
where you were on with Matt, and I thought you seemed like a pretty cool guy. And I
thanks.
only got 3 interviews during the 12 months, so I figured I should start expanding that and getting more interviews. So I
Yeah.
reached out, messaged you.
I
So
appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah.
Is this something you're looking at doing? Like, are you trying to do like a podcast, or is it just more fulfilling the digital portfolio?
Um, a little bit of both. So
Mm,
I'm gonna try to make this a more regular thing.
yeah.
But it's also for digital filling the digital portfolio too. So it's
Gotcha.
it's like a little bit of both.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to talk to you today. So you want to get
Likewise.
started?
Yeah, man. Whenever you're ready, let's
Okay.
rock. Yeah.
So the first question, I already know who you are, but people who are watching may not. So do you want to explain a little bit of who you are and what you do?
So my name is G Vidal. I go by G, and my real name's Guillermo. But that's been hard for people to say throughout
Yeah.
my whole life. But yeah, so I run a company called Alpha Dad Consulting, where we help dads specifically with family leadership, struggles in family leadership. I'm diving into online business now, showing dads how to start their own kind of side online businesses because I think now with the digital age, like if you're not making some sort of revenue online, like I think you're missing out, right? So I'm getting dads to starting to persuade them and convince them to like, hey man, maybe you should start something on the side, right? So that's been a cool journey, man. But other than that, like it's been a journey from being a very shy, introverted kid to becoming a rapper for about 10 years in the Christian hip hop world. And then from there, working at Apple, which is a kind of a weird transition, but working at Apple for another 10 years, learned a lot of skills there. And then from there, going into now as I'm building this business. I run this business, but it is still a side business. So I still work a regular day job, that allows me to work from home. But I have some interesting things to kind of say about that, which is, we can kind of get into that. But yeah, man, but that's been kind of my journey so far, all the way up to now being, this dad consultant that I call myself, which has been cool.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool, man. That sounds very fun. So I've been running battle squad calls for guys like in the Apogee program, and it's pretty fun talking to other guys like that.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fun thing to do. Um Now I'm curious, so I like to start off quite similar to Matt, actually. Like
Mm,
how were you raised? Like what was your family like as a kid?
yeah. Yeah, so my family, come from a regular, traditional Hispanic family. My family's from El Salvador, so we were pretty tight knit family. Like one of the things about Hispanic culture is like they're very big on like, hey, if you're blood, you're blood. So no matter who the crazy uncle is or the crazy aunt is, like we're gonna involve them in the family. Like they don't want to be divided and separated. But what the funny thing is though, they'll still kind of talk smack about each other, right? Like,
Yeah.
so but yeah, I grew up in kind of a tight knit family, man. Grew up in California, in LA specifically, around the Los Angeles area. So around that time, a lot of hood. I grew up around like a lot of hoodlums, right? Like a lot of gangsters and gang life, and that was all around me. But I sort of stayed away from it. I was always this, kind of like I said before, shy, introverted. Kind of kept my head down in school. I wasn't really the popular kid. I wasn't. I was always kind of the kid that would try to hide in the shadow of the popular kid, right? Or who I go try to
Yeah.
befriend the more popular kid in the class, and it's like, okay, cool. If I'm his friend, then I can live in his shadow, right, and just kind of roam around like without anybody paying attention to me. Nobody will bully me. Nobody will, But yeah,
Yeah.
I still got bullied. I still went through all those phases, those awkward phases of elementary, going into middle school and high school and all that. But with respect to the family life, um, my upbringing was very similar to many. Like, I was whooped as a kid, so if I went out of line like that was always like the belt, and it was always that type of discipline.
Yeah.
And for better or for worse, I don't know if it worked or not. you know, uh,
Yeah.
but it was a heavy-handed type of thing, man. And school was a big thing. So my parents always looked at, if you did really good in school and got good grades, that equated to you being a good kid, like a good child, right? Like, and they were always proud of that. Like, if I got A's and B's, like I was a good kid. But if I got any C's or D's or F's or anything like that, like I was being. It didn't matter how I behaved at home. Like it was just the school, right? Like they really emphasized on how important that was for them. And they came from in El Salvador, anybody that made it past the sixth grade was like, they were like educated,
Yeah.
because in at least in the little town where my parents grew up, I think sixth grade was like the highest education you could get. Like, there was no school. There's a couple hundred people that lived in that town, so there was no real higher level of education. So if you made it past a certain level, like, you were educated. So coming over here, man, they saw the possibilities, and they're like, man, if you go to college, like, you're freaking killing it, right? Like you're super educated, and they can say like, oh, my son went to college and did all this stuff, right? So
Definitely. Yeah.
that was their badge, man. And so just kind of grew up around that type of environment. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of where the way I grew
Definitely.
up. Yeah.
That answered my question very well. That was very good. I definitely understand like the feeling of being like the quiet, introverted. I because I don't really like talking to new people, and it's kind of like just hanging
Awkward.
around,
Yeah.
just not really talking to anybody, but you're like still with them, and it's not really like a friendship, but you're just kind of there.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely understand that feeling, man. And also another thing that was is a common theme is like your parents where they lived in El Salvador. It was
Yeah.
like they didn't there wasn't very much education, and then when they moved here there was a lot. And so it's kind of like you didn't have it before, so you need to have it now.
Hmm.
That kind of thing. With my grandparents and like even a lot of people that were like born in the Great Depression where they didn't have that much. Now they need to have a lot. You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yep.
And so it's the interesting things when you don't have something as much when you were younger or when you were growing up, you need to have a lot of it now. That's
And
very interesting.
you know what? One thing I'll add to that you're saying, and it just kind of brought this to mind right now, is that with my, at least with my parents, right? What would happen too is they would want to give you as their child the better educational paths, the better, right? But what they didn't do, and this is interesting, is that they didn't, now having the opportunity to even educate themselves, right? Like the information available to them, they didn't take it upon themselves to say, hey, how do I get better? How do I get a better education, learn more things so that I can be more capable, for my children, and also even kind of set an example. And I'm not knocking them. I love them to death, but
Yeah.
it's just interesting, right? Like, cuz even like I have some friends that have grown up in the Great Depression, like they have dads and grandparents, right, that have grown up throughout that time, and it was the same kind of dynamic. But where the difference is, I see some older generation folks that when the shift in information and more possibilities became available, more education became available to them, the ones that took advantage of it and said, hey, I'm not only going to educate my kids and give them better opportunities, but I'm also going to educate myself because I want to have better opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I saw with my parents, man. Like, they settled into a job where they got comfortable,
Yeah.
and they pushed me to do, like, yeah, you go do this stuff, right? But
Yeah.
I'm not going to live out my dream. I'm not going to fulfill whatever I want to do, so it's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting dynamic there. Yeah.
So kind of like similar, not quite exactly the same, but kind of like living through your kids, like that dad that pushes his son really hard at baseball because he
Yeah.
always wanted to be wicked good at baseball. It's a similar dynamic, not exactly the same,
Yeah.
but similar. That's always been interesting to me. Yeah, you kind of have to realize that your kids are not you, and they
Yeah.
do not always like the things that you like, and they don't always want the things that you want.
Yeah, parents tend to do that, man. They live vicariously through their children sometimes, right? And it's and they will do that. They'll push because they never got a chance, or or they feel like they never got a chance, or the time has passed for them to live out their dream or fulfill their. So they're like pushing the kid to live out their dream. It's like, come
Yeah.
on, yeah,
Come on, man. That's your dream.
yeah,
That's not your kid's dream.
exactly, yeah,
Um, but what were you, we already covered this kind of, but like
mhm,
what kind of things did you enjoy and what kind of things did you like to do when you were around my age? So I'm 14, gonna be
mhm,
15 like in a couple 14. I'm 14.
yeah.
What were you like around there?
Yeah, man. So dude, I really at that time when I was 13, church was a big thing. So like going to church, my cousin who was 5 years older than me, he used to invite me all the time. He's like, "Hey man, come to my house, like come sleep over the weekend. We'll take you to church. We'll take you to church." And I used to always deny it. I was 13 at the time. I'm like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good." Right.
Yeah.
And then I finally caved, and I asked my mom, like, "Hey, can I go sleep over?" Milton's his name.
Yeah.
And so I slept over his house. We went to church on Sunday, and I'm 13 years old, and I see all these pretty church girls, right? And I'm like, wow, this is church. Like, this is amazing. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have this available to me in school because in school I'm like a loser, right? Like,
Yeah.
but now here nobody knows me. Everybody's like, I'm like this new guy, right? Coming in.
Yeah.
So I used that, dude, like as a way to like reinvent my identity, if you will, right? So I was like the cool kid in church, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm like this new guy. Nobody knows me in school. Nobody knows me. So um, I start talking to the girls there, and that's how I end up in church. Right? It's first like flirting with the girls at church, man. Like not the greatest thing, not the greatest motivation, but that was me at 13. And then as I go into 14, I'm going to church more frequently. So now, like the messages that I'm receiving, sermons, and the influence that I'm getting from like the youth, my cousin, and all that, I'm starting to play music now. I start learning how to play the bass.
Nice.
I start getting involved a little bit more. So now we go to a camp, like a summer camp for church, and that kind of changes my entire dynamic. Where I'm like, man, like there's something more to this God thing, right?
Yeah.
And then I turned 14. We're ending a church, like a youth service.
Yeah.
And one of my other friends, Pablo, who ironically he's at my house right now, he's visiting. He invites me. He doesn't invite me. He says, "Hey man, we gotta put this stuff away because I gotta go to this concert." I'm like, "You going to a concert?" I'm like, "What concert are you going to?" He's like, "It's like not mind you, it's like 9 p.m. right at night on a Saturday night or something, or no, it's a Friday night." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "What concert are you gonna go to right now at like freaking 9 p.m. right?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, we're gonna go to like there's this hip hop concert going on. It's an underground Christian hip hop concert. Take that as a mouthful.
Yeah.
And it's happening like in like the slums of LA, like it's deep in the hood, right?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, some dude, one of the other guys from another church invited me, and I'm gonna go." And I'm like, "Really?" Like, can
Yeah.
I come? And I'm like the annoying. I'm 2 years younger than him, so I'm like the annoying like little kid. And
Yeah.
he's like, "Nah, like, do you have money?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think I got like $10. How much is it to get in?" He's like, "Yeah, I think it's like $10." I'm like, "All right, can I go? Can I go with you?"
Yeah.
And he lets me. And dude, that night changes my life. At 14, because I see this art form that up to that point I had no interest in. I didn't listen to hip hop. I didn't listen to rap. I mean, I listened to some things, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't an everyday thing. Matt Beaudreau would laugh at this, but I would listen to like Backstreet Boys and like In Sync, if you know who those guys are.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah.
boy bands, right? Because I would like dabble in singing those songs to some of the girls that I was trying to like get at, right? And Matt's done this, so he'll laugh at this. But yeah, so that was my music world, right? Or even Christian music, right? Hearing that like contemporary alternative music at the time.
Yeah.
But hip hop never a thing, man, until that night. And I'm like watching all these dudes just spit these verses, man, and like they're performing, they're moving on stage, they're having rap battles. and I'm just moved by everything. And we're like, it's like a really small room. There's super huge speakers in the front, like these big, huge booming speakers.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't hear yourself think in there, but it's like the funnest thing ever. And everybody's like sardines packed in, and everybody's like with their hands up, just going, whoa, you know, like you just
Yeah.
feel the energy in there. And mind you, I'm just like you, introverted. I can go extrovert, and I know how to deploy it now more than I did before.
Yeah.
But my status quo, like when I'm comfortable, just quiet, reserved. I'm kind of observing, listening. I don't
Yeah.
really like. I'm not like super social. I can be, but I'm not. I'm not that guy all the time.
Yeah.
I more revert to that. So that was me there, and I'm in that scene, and it's just kind of bringing the extrovert out of me. I'm listening to this. I go home that night, man, super inspired, and I think the very next day I write my first rap. All right, I had like this old CD. You know what a CD is? You know,
Yeah.
CD.
Yeah. I know what
I'm play. I'll play. I'm just messing with you. But I'm playing a CD where it was a reggaeton CD, right? Like it had like this. That was a big music during that time, or big genre that was coming out during that time. And there was a track on there that had a 2 minute instrumental where it was just a beat, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just rewinding that, playing it over and over. I have it on loop, and I'm just writing to it, man. I'm writing to it. And I remember the first, I think the first song, that first rap, I think it called it Appreciation, and it was like a little bit of a testimonial, like to God, that kind of thing. I even mixed in English and Spanish in the verses, which is cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I wrote my first thing, and my cousin comes over that week to pick me up, and I show him, I'm like, hey man, can you come to the room real quick? And I'm
Yeah.
playing I put on the beat, and then I spit it for him, and he's like, what? Like, where did this come, dude? That was great. Like,
Yeah.
where did this come from? And he brings
Definitely.
in his
Yeah.
girlfriend. Like, let me show Myra. Like, he brings her in, and I do it for her too, and she's like, whoa, like this is awesome. And then, dude, that sets up this whole like 10-year span where I start like every week at church. I'm like writing something new. I'm trying to find beats and download like download streaming these beats right at the time. And I'm finding instrumentals for like popular songs at the time, and I'm just putting my own lyrics on it. And I'm taking people to the car, to my mom's car, and like I'm like putting the CD on. Hey, listen to this, and I spit it for them,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Dude, that's good," And so that just kind of it got around that I was rapping and I was doing these things. So one of the dudes from another church who we met at that summer camp, like we have these summer camps with all these churches from the different denominations that were around the area,
Yeah.
and so we would get to meet a lot of people from different cities. And this dude from another city, he's like, "Hey man, I'm putting a hip hop group together, like Christian hip hop group.
Yeah.
We heard you rap, and your boy Pablo raps too. Is like, would you guys be down to join?" And
Yeah.
it took us a little while to kind of, we were talking back and forth, and we decided to join, man. And that changed the course of my life, bro. Like it gave me a skill that I would have never sought out. Like it was all divine intervention right there, where I'm like, I had to be at that spot at that exact time to get inspired to be able to do that, which is crazy. So yeah,
Yeah. That's a really cool story. That like
thanks, man.
that is like why I wanted to invite you on here. It's like it's
Thanks, man.
such an amazing story and you're such an amazing guy. It's so cool.
Thank you,
I
man.
understand like the going to church and kind of becoming a new person too
Mhm.
because so my family didn't start going to church up until like 3 years ago and
Mhm.
so um we lived in this place and I'm homeschooled and so
Okay.
like
Yeah.
we had a couple friends but we'd go over their house like a couple times a
Yeah.
month maybe and so like I wasn't around kids that much and then we moved up here and then we started to go to church and I was kind of like you said the new kid like
Yeah.
nobody really knew me and then I started playing sports and now I have like a group of kids like a
That's
bunch of
awesome.
kids that like we're all best friends and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we see each other a lot. Like I'm on the middle school basketball team with a bunch of them now, so it's pretty
Nice.
it's pretty cool.
That's
I
awesome.
also understand music too because a little bit different genres for me, but
Yeah.
I play guitar. I play the
Nice.
acoustic guitar and the electric guitar.
Okay.
So I definitely understand enjoying playing music too.
That's awesome, man. What are you playing? Are you playing like kind of like alternative, sort of like rockish type of thing, or do you like more the acoustic stuff or country? Like what's your vibe?
All over the place.
All over? Yeah.
I enjoy playing country music on
Okay.
the acoustic guitar, but then I also like rock, like
Yeah.
90s rock, so like
Nice.
Nirvana and
Yeah.
Audio Slave and
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of
It's
stuff.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the best, man. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, so I feel so this is gonna be a little bit of a tough question, but what do you
Okay.
think was the biggest obstacle with
Hmm.
your journey with God?
Biggest obstacle with God, man.
Yeah,
Man, I think that the the biggest obstacle I had, like with growing around that time at church, man, there was this pool that I had where I wanted to do the hip hop thing, right?
yeah,
Like, and I wanted to worship in my own way,
yeah,
right? And the entire church that I was attending and everything, like I got kicked out of the church. Like I got put on discipline because I was in like the leadership, but I got kicked out because the more we like as a group we kept doing the hip hop thing and we kept telling the guys the pastors and all the people at churches like, hey, this is an okay way of worshiping. Like we don't just have to sing like these old school 50s hymns, that
yeah,
you want us to sing every Sunday.
yeah,
Like we can have a hip hop concert, like we can have this stuff. And we just kept getting obstacles right in our way of
yeah,
that. And I wrestled with that because I'm like, man, who's right? Who
yeah,
does God who's right in this, in the sight, in the eyes of God, right? Like, am I right for wanting to worship him in this manner, in the way that I feel like he's donned a talent, like he's given me a talent,
yeah,
that not everybody around me can do. So why is that? Like, why do I have that ability, right? Like, why can I write something, make it rhyme, and say it in a way that impacts people? And I've been told, like, hey, man, like what you said or what you said in that verse, like it hit me, like cool, like that makes me feel like God is backing this up, right?
yeah,
But then you have the
definitely.
church, and mind you, that church had my entire family. Like it was cousins, uncles, like everybody from El Salvador. Like that was that tight knit family that I was telling you about, and that talk smack about each other behind their backs and all that, but they're
Yeah,
still tight knit, right? Like, so that was everybody, man. Even my cousin, right? Like the guy that actually invited me to go to church, and I would have never gone to church had it not been for his invitation,
yeah,
right? So all of them were telling me, you're wrong. God doesn't approve of this. So I'm wrestling with that at 16, 17, 18. And the more I'm diving into the word and I'm actually reading scripture and I'm actually wrestling with some of the verses where I'm like, what is this? Like, what does he mean here? And questioning it,
yeah,
you know, those were obstacles, man, because I would go back and ask them those questions or even portray something, right? Like, and ask, like, one of the big things that would come up at that time was like the idea of baptism, right? And mind you, we were at a Baptist church, right? That was the denomination.
yeah,
And I had a father figure, like an external father figure at the time, who I call Pops, and he was becoming a pastor during that time, and he started teaching us like really in depth studies of the word. Like we would dive into the word, and one of the things that he would say a lot would, he's like, don't believe me because I said it, believe me because you read it. He always said that. He's like, don't believe me just because I said it. Like read it for yourself, and what does it say to you? Like what do you get when you read that verse, right?
yeah,
And when we came across the topic of baptism, his understanding of it is that that it was essential for salvation, that that it was an essential component of that, right?
yeah,
And I'm like, I'm not arguing whether that's right or wrong, but that was his philosophy, and he would show scriptures that would back up that philosophy, that understanding of it, right? And
yeah,
I would question it because for a long time in the Baptist world, like they were just telling me, like, no, just say that you accept Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, and that's it. Like you're saved forever,
yeah,
right? And you're good, like you're saved. And I would wrestle with that because I'm like, man, like am I really saved? And if this baptism thing is important, then should I do it? Because when baptism for them in that church was like, hey, you need to get baptized to just play music in the band. Just because
Yeah.
you need to do that as like a rite of passage for you to be able to get privileges in the church, right? To be a deacon or whatever you wanted to be,
Yeah.
or a leader in the church. But I asked them, like, where does it say that in scripture? Like, can you show me?
Yeah.
And they got mad, and they were like, well, no, like, it doesn't, like, it's implied. I'm like, how is it implied? Like, show me. Like, I want to see the scripture that says, hey, in order for me to play music at church, I need to be baptized. Like,
Yeah.
like, show me that. And they couldn't
Yeah.
show me. But there was plenty of verses that said something along the lines of like, hey, like, baptism has some sort of symbolism, right?
Yeah.
To salvation, like laying down of the old, rising up of the new. Like, there's something there.
Yeah.
And so I questioned it. I asked them questions, and I remember one specific time where I was a youth leader and I'm preaching about what I had just learned about baptism, and again, I'm preaching it as like, this is what the scripture says. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a dialogue. Where is the truth in this? Like, where. But they looked at it as I was being a false prophet, and me, Pablo, my boy, and a couple other guys, and Pops, who was going at that church at the time as well. We all got classified as like false prophets. We said like, oh no, like that guy is like a false prophet. He's leading you guys the wrong way. He's teaching you guys the word in the wrong way. And we ended up getting kicked out, man. Like, and that was our home church. Like, they didn't want us there anymore, and they said like no. And we got berated. One time, one dude shoved me into the bathroom. He was a leader in the church. He shoved me into the bathroom as I was like drinking water in the fountain, because the fountains were right next to the men's bathroom. He
Yeah.
grabbed me, he pushed me in. I'm like 16, 17 at the time. And he's like, how are you saved? Like what are you talking about, bro? Like, he's blocking my exit, and he's like, how are you saved?
Yeah.
Super like abrasive. And I'm like, through obedience, like, you do what God tells you to do, and lo and behold, you'll be saved. That's all I
Yeah.
said. And he's like, no, you guys are wrong. You guys are wrong. How am I wrong in saying that? Like, prove
Yeah.
it to me. Like, you just shoved me into the bathroom. What are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I had to like, like push him out and get out, and this and that. But it got that bad, man. Like, where, and then they were telling my mom, this is all her friends and family, like,
Yeah.
telling him like, your son is wrong, your son is bad, like, your son is being led astray, your son is the black sheep, you're and I'm over there trying to like sneak out of the house to go to Bible studies, like, you think about that, I'm not out there doing drugs, I'm not out there like wanting to go sleep around, I'm not out there like, I literally just want to go read the word and like learn more about God and the word and all that stuff. And so that was a huge obstacle, bro. And I wrestled with that for a long time, where I felt leaving that church, going to another church, and then um, being a part of starting a church as well with Pops when he started his own church. And like, there was a lot of wrestling of that, where I would think back to those moments and I'm like, man, was it wrong? Was I wrong? Was it this? Now looking back, I don't look at it like that.
Yeah.
I know that it was the right path to take, but when you're in 16, 17, like that, those are big, heavy things, man. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a tough challenge. I feel like the thing with the Bible is it's
Mm,
so big and it says so many things that
yeah.
you can argue back and forth on what is right and what is wrong so much, because I feel like there's a Bible verse for every single side, and you could argue so many wrong things by using the Bible. And you can also argue right things by using the Bible too. So
Yeah.
there's so many sides that you can go at it, and you can argue back and forth so much. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was a pretty big obstacle for you to
Yeah.
deal with at that age, especially.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And now I'm curious about this too. So you
Mm,
mentioned you started rapping. I'm curious, how did that, you said almost 10 years, I believe. Like,
yeah.
what were you doing in there? How'd the band go? Like, what
Yeah.
was happening?
Yeah, so we go to the guy that's forming the group, right? We go to his house, and he's kind of been gathering all these like they're all teenagers. Like it's all, it's all like we're all like 16, 17, 14, like we're all young.
Yeah,
And he had like a violinist, he had like a keyboard player, he had a couple guitarists, a bass player, a drummer, and now he was getting me as another MC, right? Like coming in as another rapper.
yeah,
And so we had like a 9-person group, and that's how we launched it. Like we had all this, we had like a live band playing behind us, and I think that's kind of what set us apart from a lot of the stuff that was out there.
yeah,
So there was a couple of schools of thought, right? Because you had the mainstream hip hop, which was like 50 Cent, Eminem,
yeah,
like those. It was like Ice Cube, Dr. Dre. Like there was all that mainstream stuff that was very much about gang violence, drugs, sex. Like it was all that stuff, right? Like it was debauchery. Like
yeah,
that was it. Those were the messages that you were getting on those and those songs with like really good beats behind it, like really good sounding music that would make your bob your head and all that. But you're listening to those types of messages. And
yeah,
we were on the flip side of that where we were like, well, no, we don't want to sound like that. So we have a live band that's playing actual music, right? Like it's not just a beat on a track.
yeah,
And then we have us rapping on top of it, and then including some kind of singing melodies like as hooks and stuff like that as well.
yeah,
And our sound was very much more kind of an underground sound. Like it didn't sound like mainstream hip hop, you know.
yeah,
And we roll with that, man. And we would go to churches, like we get invited to these venues like youth events and all that. And sometimes we'd be the only hip hop group performing, right? And they would get weirded out because they'd be like, whoa, like, we'd hit them like a surprise because they didn't know what to expect from us. They were expecting the same stuff that they heard on the radio at the time, all the 50 Cent and all that stuff. And when they saw
yeah,
us, we're like, oh wow, like this actually sounds pretty good. Like,
yeah,
this is like, I didn't know you could worship God like this,
yeah,
you know? And so that's what set us apart, man. And we just kept rocking different venues. Like we had a concert almost every Saturday, or sometimes Sunday as well, but mostly every Saturday we had some sort of a youth event, some sort of church event, some sort of uh, something happening. And our guy that was leading the group, he was really good at like just networking. He was like the social guy, right? Like where I
yeah,
was
yeah,
introverted, he was the guy that'd be talking to everybody, making friends and all that. And he would get us gigs, man, like over and over and over again. Over time though, it did wear on us because we did it for a while, but we weren't getting paid.
yeah,
And most of the churches that we would go to, like they weren't, like it'd be like a donation type of thing, so it wasn't
yeah,
anything that would sustain us, even though that's what we wanted. Like we all wanted to just be artists full time.
yeah,
But no, we were all working our day jobs, and then on the weekends, like we would just turn into rappers, right? Like or like
yeah,
MCs or hip hop, artists.
yeah,
So yeah, it was a lot of that, man. And over time, what if you join a band, I don't know your guitar career right now, but if you when you join a band, you'll see this is that the more people you have in the group, if you guys are not aligned with the goal that you have, like if you're not all like, hey, we're trying to make it,
yeah,
and everybody's not aligned on that and on the values either, what you'll see is everybody starts to just kind of go their own way, man. Like life happens to them, and then people left, like they moved, or they found a boyfriend or a girlfriend, right? Like because we had a girl in the group too, so like
yeah,
we they get married, right? They start having kids. It's like you see the transitions of life happen, and then it's hard to keep us together. So we ended up just being three of us at the end of it all. Like throughout that 10-year lifespan, we just started losing people over time.
yeah,
And at the end of it all, we didn't have a live band anymore. We just had, we would just take a CD with like 7 beats on it, and then they would just press play, and then we would just rap our set, for that. And
yeah,
that was how we did it. I think one of the last performances we did, no, actually, one of the last performances we did is when we released our 7-track album. It's the only album we ever released, and it's not even on iTunes because It was before iTunes was even a thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's how old we are. So I'm dating myself here. But you know, that was a cool moment. You know, we had an album release party, and
Yeah.
that's where yeah, that was like the last time I think that we performed. And then just recently, well, I mean, I'm gonna be like I've been picking it up again, you know, now, which has been good, man, because the parable of the talents kind of got me right, and then also
Yeah.
having a dad, having a son, because
Yeah.
my son, my oldest, I have three. My oldest son, Ethan, he is very musically inclined. Like
Yeah.
he's 6 years old, but he can listen to a song once and already the next time he listens to it, he's already reciting the lyrics. He knows the hook, he knows the melody. Like it just sticks to him.
Man.
And I've been creating songs for the past 2 years now, just getting back into it. I want to release an album next year, like an actual solo project that I'm working on right now. So picking this back up has been awesome because I've been like showing him some of the songs I've been working on, and he's like rapping them.
Yeah.
Your son rapping your own songs, like that's it's one of the best feelings in the world, man. So it just it convicted me to be like, man, I can't be. I'm doing the business thing, and I love it. I love online business and all that, and I love what I'm doing on the coaching and consulting side with men.
Yeah.
But I also have this creative outlet, right, with the hip hop and the rapping and all that, and I've been just kind of I it's like the parable of the talents. I was that guy that just like I took his talent, I just put it in, dug it in, you know, dug a hole
Yeah.
and put it in the ground, and I just haven't done anything with it, even
Yeah.
though it's been there, just in the back of my mind, just like, hey man, I'm still here, like do
Yeah.
something with this, you know. And
Yeah.
I think now I've woken up to that, so it's been cool to see that.
I think that's pretty cool. Definitely when you release that album, send it to me. I'll listen to that.
Yeah, this one will be on iTunes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this one will be on iTunes and like Spotify and all that stuff. So yeah, I'll make sure. I'll be sure to let you know for sure when it drops. Yeah,
Okay, definitely, man. That's
yeah,
really cool. I like listening to music, and I've I can memorize lyrics pretty fast, but the
really.
rest of the song has been pretty tough for me. So
Yeah,
I couldn't read music for the life of me up until like 3 months ago, and I'm like I want to learn all these songs, and I want to
yeah,
buy like the songbooks from the guitar stores, but I just
yeah.
can't read music. And so eventually it took me like a week just staring at sheet music and trying to play it, and I eventually picked it up. So that's pretty.
Could you do it by ear? Like, or are you pretty good at doing it by ear?
So I'm okay. I'm not the
Okay.
best.
Yeah.
So, like, if I see a guy playing guitar, based
Yeah.
on what I hear and what I see,
Okay.
I can kind of pick it up. Yeah, it takes me a while to
Yeah.
practice it. I know where my hands are gonna go,
Yeah.
but my hands don't go where they're supposed to go most of the time.
It's like
So,
mentally, you know, but you
yeah,
can't tell your body to do it. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at right now.
That's
So,
good.
but I'm getting a lot better now.
That's good, man.
Um,
Yeah, I used to like being around musicians all the time, dude. Like and seeing a bunch of guitarists. I used to hate it. I hated it. Like because it would take me like when I was playing the bass or even when I was trying to learn the guitar,
yeah.
it would take me forever. Like I would read like the fret sheets, like the you know with like the numbers on the chords and stuff like that. You know, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, cool, I can play this. All right, it
Yeah.
would take me forever, right? And then
Yeah.
I'd get together with like a buddy who was like an ultimate guitarist, right? He just listened to the tune for like 5 seconds and then he's like playing the whole thing. And I'm like, what the heck, dude? Like, how do you
Yeah.
do that? He's like, I
Yeah.
don't know, man. I see it and I know what note it is. And this, I'm like, get out of here, bro. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool. I want to learn other instruments too. So right now I'm focusing on guitar, trying to get that down. I want to be that guy where I can just listen to a song and play it, and and they're all like that guy.
Yeah,
He can just
get to it,
listen.
man. Get to that John Mayer status where you just
Yeah.
you're just rocking out everywhere.
Yeah, I can't wait till that. But I want to play piano. Bass is
Nice.
basically guitar, so
Yeah.
it's pretty simple. I don't have one right now, so I can't really practice that much, but I think that if I got one and I had some songs that I could learn, I could figure it out pretty quick. And then drums. I've always wanted to play drums since I was
Yeah.
little, so
Yeah, drums are good, man. I could never I couldn't get the rhythm. right? Like when I would practice, like my boy Pablo, he was like he's just natural, man. Like he's freaking drummer all. He can play
Yeah.
drums, guitar, bass, and he can sing, and he can also rock some of the like. He's like a full on band, you know. And
Yeah.
I hate it, you know. I love it, but I
Yeah.
hate it, right? Yeah, and then yeah, he can sing too and all that stuff as well. Like it's yeah, everything that he can do in like 10 seconds. It takes me you know years to try to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get that. Hopefully I'll be the one man band one day though. I
do
could
it, man.
just play them all.
Do it.
Singing, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I've tried to sing, but
yeah.
only like among my family, so I'm not sure how good I am yet.
Yeah, you
So
can you can mess with that too. Like as you're getting older, yeah, because I've heard like your voice is like an instrument, right? So
yeah,
you can learn how to tune it up and modify it a little bit and get and find a because I think everybody has a singing voice. You just have to find what that is, like how you know because you'll hear some famous artists and like you know some artists can go really high, like they can go super high pitch, and then there's some baritones like where you have like those really low, you know, even those country voices, like the really low
yeah,
country voices, like
yeah,
that's the voice, you know, they just lock into that, and they
yeah,
may not be able to sing like the Backstreet Boys, but you know
yeah,
they could they definitely rock out still. So
yeah. I'll get there someday.
you will, man.
But so we're coming up on almost 40 minutes. I have
Yeah,
another two questions that I'd like to ask you
yeah,
before. Are
go for it.
you all good on time?
I'm good, man. Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one, so I had a bunch of other questions, but we just had such a good conversation that this is the one that I really wanted to ask you.
Mm,
How do you measure success?
mm, yeah. So this is an interesting one because I've been thinking a lot about this one recently, and so a lot of people they'll sell you this dream of like wanting to be happy, right? Like
Yeah,
happiness, like the pursuit of happiness, right? That's
yeah,
the goal, and everybody, I just want you to be happy.
yeah,
And what people don't realize is that the moment of happiness, it's a moment. It's like a state of mind, an emotional state that you're in for a moment.
yeah,
It's not something that is supposed to just be everlasting. Like if you see people that are just constantly happy, like all the time, like sometimes you just want to punch them in the face because you're like, why are you so
yeah,
freaking happy all the time? Like, you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, don't you ever get mad? Like, you know,
yeah,
don't you ever have another emotion? You know, but you know, and it's a weird goal, right?
yeah,
Because you look at even there's been studies on this with people that are competing in the Olympics, right?
yeah,
I won't be happy until I win that gold medal,
yeah,
and they work so hard, you know, train so hard, and they get it. Like, cool, I got the gold medal, and then they're unhappy,
yeah,
right? They enter a depression, or and it's because the goal that they had of like, once I get this, I'm gonna be happy. Like it equals happiness, right?
yeah,
And that I'm gonna be in that constant state of happiness for the rest of my life, and that's not true.
yeah,
It's not, you
definitely.
know. So people will look at that as success,
Yeah,
though that's the common ideals. Like if you're doing something that makes you happy, you are successful, right?
yeah,
And I think that it's the word happy is what I have an issue with. I think what you're looking for is fulfillment, right? Like
yes,
you're looking to be fulfilled in what you're doing. Like give you an example of me with Alpha Dad Consulting, right? Like doing I am not I can edit video.
yeah,
I don't like editing video. You know, I can speak and I can get on camera and I can talk. I don't like editing and listening to myself and watch myself talk on camera and then have to edit hours of video. It doesn't make me happy to do those
yeah,
things. You know what I mean? But I can do it. And the end result of that, I know that that's where I get the fulfillment from, right? When I release something, a piece of
yeah,
content, or you know, or I help somebody. I'm coaching one of the guys, and I'm giving them some advice on something, giving them a framework on something, and they
yeah,
do it, and they get a result. That fulfills me. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, you know, all that work that I did that I didn't really enjoy,
yeah,
didn't make me happy, ended in a fulfilling moment for me, you know.
yeah,
And an
definitely.
understanding of that if I keep doing this, I'm going to be fulfilled. And I think that's what I equate success to, is like living a fulfilling life, right? Like
Yeah.
you're actually fulfilled in the work that you do. And I think for men specifically, work is always tied to purpose for some reason,
Yeah.
right? Like when you see guys that are in depression. This is actually something I learned recently. When this lady psychologist or something like that works with men, she
Yeah.
said depression in a man is caused by unfulfilled potential, which is interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
you think about it, like when you're in a depressed state of mind, and I've been in these moments in my life, it's always been because I have this unfulfilled potential. I have this thing that I'm like, I know I'm supposed to do something with my life. Like I know there's something there. I just don't know what that is or
Yeah.
how to even get started, right? And most people, most men, man, will live throughout their lives stuck right there. They won't try to figure that out. They won't
Yeah.
wrestle with that. They'll just sedate. They'll settle into comfort. They'll settle into the job that they really hate going to, but they
Yeah.
do it because it's like, everybody knows me here. I'm
Yeah.
already here. Like I'm already getting paid. It's every 2 weeks I get paid. I get a check. Like it's all good, Like I
Yeah.
could just, I'll put up with it, right? And they settle, man. They settle. They settle for comfort. Um, and they never try to figure that out. So I think that's definitely the measure of success, man. When you're living to your potential, you're fulfilling that potential, you're
Yeah.
successful. Like, you maybe you don't have everything you've ever wanted. Like maybe you don't have $1 million in the bank. It's
Yeah.
okay, but you're developing the skills that could potentially get you to $1 million in the bank,
Yeah.
if you
Definitely.
keep moving in that direction. So yeah, everybody's gonna define it differently, man. But for me, is if you're working, if you're living a fulfilled life,
Yeah.
I think you're pretty successful.
Yeah.
So
Uh, I'd agree with that. So
yeah,
one of the guys, Ed Milet, I listen to his podcast a lot. He's a pretty
great,
cool guy. Yeah.
great.
He speaks a lot on that topic about fulfillment over happiness, and
Mm,
ha nobody is ever happy all the time,
nope.
even if they look like it.
Yeah,
They're never, almost never.
very
Nobody
true.
is happy all the time. Um, and even Ed Milet went as far to say that he didn't want to be happy all the time. He wanted to be fulfilled,
Mm,
because that would would be successful in the end. And I thought that was a very interesting thing. And another thing you mentioned in there that I thought is very important. I feel like one of the biggest problems we have today is
mm,
people settling into comfort.
yeah,
Like they're okay with just being comfortable where
yeah,
they are, even if they don't like their job, but everybody knows me here. I'm okay here. I don't have to do anything more.
mm,
So why do it? That I feel like that's one of the biggest problems that we have today in our world.
yeah. That's no, it's a huge problem, and I see it with a lot of the guys that I've had the privilege of working with and talking to, and it's they get stuck in that, and it's a mindset thing a lot of the
Yeah,
times, right? Because they don't believe in their I've asked guys, like, do you feel worthy of being of leading your family? Do you feel worthy of having the family that you have? And a lot of the guys will say no. Like they don't feel worthy. They don't feel like they deserve the family that they have, or not realizing that they've been chosen. Like they've been
yeah,
chosen to lead that family. They've been chosen to be those kids' dad. They've been chosen to be that woman's husband. Like
yeah,
that's a big responsibility, man. And you're right. People will settle into comfort, and they rather not wrestle with that. They rather not deal with that.
yeah,
Most people look at their week as like, man, I got to get through work. I got to get through the 5 days of work so that I can escape to the weekend and then do whatever I want. Like it just,
yeah,
which whatever I want is watching Netflix, drinking,
yeah,
like whatever, right? Like it's the
yeah,
it's the pastimes thing, playing video games, like it's the
yeah,
things. And I'm not knocking any of those things. I'm not saying like, okay, like don't watch a Netflix show. Like, okay, you can watch it, but what most people do is they'll binge it, like they'll
yeah,
watch excessive amounts of it,
yeah,
or play excessive amounts of video games. Like it's it's one of those things, man, where they don't have the comfort is so good
yeah,
that in comparison to how hard they have to work to actually fulfill, like live a fulfilling life and build the
Yeah.
dream that they want, it's like the scale doesn't match. Right? Like it's too much.
Yeah.
Like the comfort is too good, and the people that can escape from that idea, it's it's like I have trouble when talking about we were talking about social venues, right, and being like the
Yeah.
introvert. One of the biggest things that I have when I go, especially in like to a party or something like that, or social setting,
Yeah.
is that all the guys at the party, the men, the dads,
Yeah.
are talking about sports, like football and
Yeah.
like whatever the sport of this, like whatever season we're in of the sport, like that's like MLB, whatever they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I'm so out of touch, bro, like with all that stuff, because I
Yeah.
don't care. Like I don't have a team. Like I don't have, you know what I mean? Like the only thing I watch in terms of sports every 4 years is the World Cup. you know, and that's just
Yeah.
like for a month. Of like
Yeah.
every 4 years for a month, I'll watch like some of the games for some of the players that I like. They're fun to watch. Like
Yeah.
Messi and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't follow, like I don't know stats, like people's stats
Yeah.
and this and that. And a lot of these guys, like they're like, yeah, man, like that QB and this and that, and like they got this guy and they trade. Can you believe they traded him and this and that, and he's done this, like he's won however many games and blah blah blah. And he's got like 4 touchdowns and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And I'm just like, all right, man, like that's cool, like that all those things. But
Yeah.
how's your marriage? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
how's your how are your kids doing?
Yeah.
Like how are you doing? Are you liking the work that you do? Do you like are you
Yeah.
fulfilling your dream? Like what do you want to do? Like is there a business you want to start?
Yeah.
Um and no, man, no, most people are not willing to go there. So yeah.
Yeah. So quick off the success question.
Yeah.
So on our fridge we have this piece of paper and
Mm,
it's split in half. On one half there's this straight line. It's
okay.
an arrow. It says what most people think success is like. And then the other half is like so jumbled you can barely even see it. And what success is actually like.
Yeah.
Why do you think most people think that success is just that straight line?
Yeah. Yeah, there's an illusion that's placed, I think, upon us, especially through social media.
Yeah,
Because I think never in history have we seen a time where seeing the success of someone else is like right there in front of you. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like you can find a millionaire on Instagram like that, you
yeah,
know, or a billionaire. You can follow Elon Musk on Twitter right now
yeah,
and see how he lives his life real fast.
yeah,
There's benefit to that because you can see what's possible,
yeah,
right? But what happens, I think, subconsciously to the masses, is that they see that and they're like, "Oh, cool! Like it looks easy."
yeah,
It's just I just have to do this, and boom, I can get to success. I can get to the $1 million or the billion or whatever. Like, they
yeah,
look at guys like Alex Hermosi or some of these guys, right, that are out there,
yeah,
and you think it's easy, but I love that diagram because it's not, man. Like
yeah,
you're looking at like chapter 10 of their life
yeah,
while you're over in like chapter 2 of yours,
yeah,
or chapter 2 of not only your life but chapter 2 of like the business venture that you just started,
yeah,
or the
definitely.
YouTube channel that you just started, the podcast you just started. You're looking at Joe Rogan and you're like, man, I want to get to that many viewership and this and that, like 50 million views for the Trump interview, like
Yeah,
crazy, right?
yeah,
And you think it's like easy. No, like Joe Rogan's been building his personal brand for like the past 20 years.
yeah,
You know, that's why he can get that. And most people don't want to do the 20 years.
yeah,
They don't want to go from chapter 2 to chapter 10. They don't want to go through all
yeah,
that struggle. And I think social media plays into that where they show us a Tim Kennedy figure and they're like, wow, like this looks easy. Like,
yeah,
no, it's not easy, man. Like it takes
yeah,
time. And it's exactly like that diagram. It's like this, because you
yeah,
you go into different directions, you try different things, you make a lot of mistakes. I can't tell
yes,
you how many mistakes I made just figuring this out, you know.
yeah,
And I'm still making mistakes. Like, I don't have it all figured out, but at least I ran with something for a long
yeah,
enough period of time. Like now it's been think it's been 4 years now since I started the YouTube channel, and then the podcast, and then this, and now I have a community, and I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
It's not all figured out, but because this thing, man, like it's a long term game for me. It's like it's this is not just a weekend venture, you know.
Yeah.
Like this is a long term game and strategy for me to get out of the day job and all that, and like build my own legacy, build my own thing. And just most people aren't willing to do that, man. Like the most people are afraid of failing so bad, and I
Yeah.
think school does this to us, right? Because when we get an F, like signifies a failure, and
Yeah.
we look at that as, I was telling you about my parents and how, if I got an F, right, like I would get whooped. Like
Yeah.
that's how bad it was. That's how they equated it. And when really we learn through failure. Like
Yeah.
failure is the key to success. Like we have to fail a bunch of times, learn from it, adjust, and then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Now I learn, and you change your behavior from
Yeah.
there. So yeah, man. It's a perfect diagram. I love that. It's good.
Definitely, yeah. I feel like I have a quick example here.
Mm,
Like, so I mentioned I play guitar. So
yeah.
I've wanted to play guitar for a very long time.
Yeah.
And like I have a guitar, so I'd pick it up. I'd be like, man, I really want to learn this. Like I'd watch a YouTube video, I'd read a book, and then nothing would happen. About I think it was like month 6 or 7 in Apogee, and I finally started to hammer in. You need to start doing this every day if you want to get good at this.
Yes, sir.
And so I started doing it every day. And then here I am, and now I can actually play full songs. And it's like
Nice.
you just have to put in the work and then the results will come.
It's the reps and the consistency. Like
Yeah.
it always comes back, no matter how we want to complicate it and like try to find the hack and this and that and the shortcut,
Yeah.
always comes back to the basics, man. Like you do that, what you do every day is gonna compound and add to the result that you want, you know. And if you're not,
Definitely.
then you can't expect it. Like I mean, you can dream it all you want, but it'll just stay a dream.
Yeah.
Like it won't become a reality if you don't work towards it. So it's good.
Yeah. Definitely. Great stuff here today. I really appreciate you hopping on with me.
Yeah, brother.
Before
Appreciate you.
before we cut this off, I do
Yeah.
want where can we go to help support you and where can we find you?
Yeah. So alphadadconsulting.com. You go there, that'll have all the information. You can find Alpha Dad Consulting on YouTube,
Yeah.
podcast, and you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter as well, gvidal underscore ADC. So Alpha Dad Consulting, the
Yeah.
initials. Yeah, that's really where I'm active on Instagram mostly, and Twitter now. I've been really dabbling in Twitter, getting like really loving the platform now compared to how it was before. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, man, those are the places.
Um,
Um,
th-
what
yeah.
one thing I gotta thank you for, because I think you posted in Apogee once about I think it was one of the interviews that you did, and I think it was with your dad, if I'm not mistaken. Is your dad
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Is it
Yeah.
is it Heyman or Hammond? How do you say his
Hammond.
Hammond? Okay.
Hammond. Yeah.
Um, I watched that interview that you did with him.
Yeah.
I don't know if I finished it, so I apologize if I didn't finish it. But there was something at the beginning, man, with that your dad said that really resonated with me, which was about the leadership or being a leader
Yeah.
in particular. And I have it written down here, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity for just me to share that with you because it was like the definition. I don't know where it is, but it was the definition of a leader, man, and it was something along the lines of like an individual who like inspires and guides and influences uh, a group or another individual, right, to
Yeah.
achieve a desired goal.
Yeah.
And when he said that, I was like, man, that's so powerful,
Yeah.
because I talk about family leadership all the time, and to have I'm literally I borrowed that definition from your dad because I'm like, this is awesome. Like now
Yeah.
when I talk about leadership, I talk about the difference between like a leader and a boss, right?
Yeah.
And the boss is usually like, hey, I want you to do things. I want to boss you around and do things because of my reasons, right? And because I want to
Yeah.
achieve my goal
Yeah.
versus the leader is like, hey, I want to influence, I want to guide you, I want to inspire you to achieve your desired goal, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever you want to do. And you think about a family, where is that more true than in a family, right? As a family leader, like for
Yes.
your wife, you want her to accomplish and live her best life. Your kids, the same thing, right? And you're same thing. So I just wanted to thank you for that, because the fact that you put that video out, I was able to catch that, see it, and it changed my whole paradigm on the word leader. So I just thank you, and thank you to your dad. You know, when you get a chance, send him a thank you for me. So I just want you to
Okay.
know that yeah.
Well, I'm happy to see that that affected you. That interview affected you so much. That was a
Yes, sir.
pretty fun interview, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that you got to see that through workplace.
Yeah, man.
Um, but yeah, this was fun today. I feel like I could talk to you for a while longer, but we're coming up on almost an hour now,
Yeah, you're
and
good, man.
so I figured we cut this off to respect your time, and so this was great fun today. I appreciate you hopping on here.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your time. Um, Thank you, and see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks, Kyron. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, thank you for having me on. And are you going are you gonna be in Austin, Round Rock, or
Unfortunately, I
no?
don't think I am,
Okay.
but um,
Yeah.
I would love to be there. But it's the holidays, and it's gonna be crazy. I have basketball, and
Gotcha.
uh,
Gotcha.
I live pretty far away from Texas too. So
Where are you at?
I'm up in southern New Hampshire. So
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, you're in
yeah,
New Hampshire.
so
Yeah, so you're up
yeah,
there. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I am.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But
man. Well,
yeah,
hopefully someday soon, man. Well, I mean, I'm sure they're gonna be having more events now as Apogee continues to grow. So,
definitely.
it'll be awesome to see you and get to shake your hand one day. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. I'll definitely make it to one of them one day.
Yeah.
Not this year, hopefully next year. Okay?
Sounds good, man.
Yeah. See you soon.
All right, Kyron. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, you too.